Welcome to the Albion TV feedback loop, where we bring you our feedback. Oh my God, I'm getting this title wrong every week, guys. I feel like we may need to make this shorter. But today is the 30th of June, 2021. I am your host, the chosen one. Today I am joined by Robin Hood, RS, and Bogle. The purpose of the feedback loop is to examine key issues and topics facing the world of Albion. We gather feedback from Reddit, the forums, and well-informed members of the community. Then we take the best of it, condense it down to about 30 minutes of a show, and we also bring some notes tomorrow or Friday to the developers, discuss that with them, and bring back the information that we had the previous week to you on the feedback loop. This week's topics include economic changes, the first impressions on the gathering changes that came in with season 13, transmutation, relics, the new mobs, the spiders, the what are they? Treasure drones, Bogle? I want to get
Mm,
that right.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Treasure drones and the upcoming changes to open world mobs. We're also going to go over public hideouts and rest cities. Oh my God, I can't talk today. You guys are going to have to take over. This is going to be an interesting day for sure.
I don't know what's happened to you in
I
between,
don't
like, the
know.
war
I
report and
was
now,
fine
like,
25 minutes ago, and now I can't say my name.
well, buckle up, it's gonna be a long journey because we got about
30
30,
minutes
45
left.
minutes, somewhere around there, or depending. Um, I guess we can dive right into it. What's the first topic that we got going? Is it gathering?
Is gathering good, ye?
It's good ye.
Good ye. We we saw changes with these season 13 patch where the rate of enchanted materials in the black zones went up significantly.
I believe I reread it because we had a little bit of confusion here, if it was just the black zone, if it was Ava Roads and Royals as well. It said everything T5 and above has been increased by
Okay.
that. So I'm guessing that includes everything, like
Mm.
roads, outlands,
And it
etc.
was by 2 times and 4 times, correct?
It said quadrupled, yeah, but
Mhm.
Quadrupled.
yeah, that's 4 times, right? For the point three, yeah. I mean, but the question is, what people think about this, right? We
Mhm.
saw some impact on these changes, and we went around and sort of asked a bunch of people and what it feels like gathering, transmuting, maybe finding relics post season 13. What have you guys found so far?
That it's better overall. Like a number of gatherers have said that they really are finding a lot more of the special resources out there. I talked to a couple of um, PvPers, or primarily PvPers, people who've played the game since the beginning and have a lot of stuff unlocked. And they've started bringing their tools out again when they go ganking
Really?
because you don't want to go buy that point 3 if you can gather it. There's nothing worse than going, oh, I just left that on the ground. How many are on that? Oh no.
Yeah,
Don't
even
say
like
it's so.
CVZs, dude. Like I saw a couple of screenshots, like people running past like big 8.2 stones, like during ZVZ time, and someone just pulls out their pickaxe and well with their hammer and starts hammering away. Like people are taking their tools even to ZVZs now because they can just bank them in a hideout, or rest and be done with it. But you don't want to miss out on that point 2, point 3 now.
And they're available all the time, it seems. People are just very excited about them. I have heard, however, and Bogle, I think you can back me up on this, is that you've heard some people are still preferring the roads as opposed to the outlands because they just find them safer still.
Right. That I mean, that's sort of a personal preference. Some people are just scared if they imagine the black zones and if they imagine a big Zerg rolling on top of you. So it's yeah, I've heard that too. But overall, I got the same thing. People are happy they can find more. I heard somebody say 15 to 20% happier, whatever that
Mm.
means.
Plus the additional happier that we've noticed on the auction houses as well, Bogle, perhaps?
Is that happy? I
I
mean,
mean, the prices are going up for raw materials on the auction house, is what I'm saying. And
right.
we're seeing that they're collecting more. and the value of what they're collecting has gone up as well. And we're seeing a pretty significant increase in value for the point 0.2 and point 0.3 materials, even the point 0.1s to some extent on the auction house. There are some corrections that I've seen in some cities for like a day, but mostly it seems like overall the average price of materials has gone up. And that's putting the profits into the hands of the gatherers, where before we were seeing those profits directly go into transmutation.
Right. I mean, that's sort of the second part of this question, right? The transportation changes. And some of the highest tier resources, they have always sort of floated around or close to that price point. And with the transmutation pricing or the cost of transmutation going up, some of these resources have just straight up followed that path. And it's very cool to see these changes in action if you actually look through some of the history on the marketplace. It's pretty neat.
One of the other things I think we both noticed too is that when we go to get feedback on certain topics, there are some topics where we'll get a lot of feedback on it, and some where we'll get less or very redundant feedback. This is one of the ones where we got very similar feedback across the board. I believe all three of us got the exact same notes on this, and we all contacted different people. And I think it's because people are happy and they just don't give us good feedback when they're happy. It's just we like it, crafting good, ye.
Crafting good ye, gathering good ye. But I there's been some obviously a little bit of negative feedback as well. Like one or two people still unhappy with finding one tick resources, and that's completely understandable. I'm in the same boat, but that has been addressed via the Reddit AMA that the Albion devs did. Was it 2 days ago? Yesterday, 2 days ago, and they confirmed that that is being looked into, and also gathering dungeons have been confirmed as well. So
Yes.
more updates for gatherers in the in the near future. I wouldn't say very near future. In the near future, this year sometime.
Before we move on, I do want to address something that was said in chat. I believe it's Levetnik says that makes absolutely no sense in my honest opinion. There are more resources available. Let's sell them for more. Like what the hell? The reason this is happening is because so many resources used to be made through transmutation, but the cost to transmute higher level resources, the point 0.2s and the point 0.3s, at the higher level specifically, has gone up a lot. And that has had a couple of effects. On the lower level, it means that less is being used for transmutation. So we're seeing that the bulk prices aren't changing there. It's been very weird in the lower levels, but at the higher levels, because people need to or spend more to transmute, they're not doing it, and they're buying from the people who are selling the stuff they gathered. And now those guys can sell at a higher rate because there isn't this low floor for or low ceiling, I guess it was, right, Bogle,
Mhm,
for the
mhm.
gathered materials. And that's why we're seeing it pick up in both areas, both the amount that they can harvest and the amount that is selling and for how much. So,
The only thing I'm surprised by is how little offloading of stockpiles there was. As somebody who does a lot of talking to people who like to market dabble, I got the impression that a lot of people prepared resources before the patch. They transmuted them at the old price upwards, and they should be able to sell them off now. But that seems to happen fairly slowly, slower than I expected personally. So I'm a little cautious that there might be some sort of correction coming up soon, but who
mm.
knows? Maybe it's what it is.
Well, it might be an investment long term as people expect the new ceiling for some of these resources to go up closer to the new transmutation level. And so they want to hold those resources and maybe dole them out slowly over time so that they don't get rid of them all in like some market correction, but then can make their money over time. And especially with the population of Albion just recently increasing, in a couple of months, these guys are going to need their tier 7, gear, man, and
I
their
mean,
tier
but
8
they
gear.
also might be able
It's
to gather it at that time.
true, but
That's true.
we'll see how it corrects over time. But I think we need to move on to the mob changes that we've noticed for season 13 and how people feel about them. There's been the additions of the crystal spiders, and the treasure drones. I'm always gonna have trouble with that one. Treasure drones, right?
Yeah, just it. I had trouble with it as well. Like it doesn't spring to mind drones in Albion. It just there's yeah, but everyone that I talk to very much enjoying the crystal spiders and the drones. You know, the
Mhm.
drones are pretty much amplified hidden treasures for the time being, like with the amount they drop. Um, some very happy people and a lot of people out there roaming solo and in smaller groups looking for spiders. Um, and obviously it helps with season rankings as well. So it's all connecting into maybe the vision that SBI wants to go down, considering looking at the roadmap, they talked about even having the treasures not spawned on a timer anymore. It's randomized. Same with the spiders, completely randomized. You don't know if you're going to have one in your zone. You don't know when they spawn. You have to be out there looking, and
Mhm.
that's what we want people to do.
Yeah, I've heard very few complaints. The complaints that I got were that some people have figured out how to maybe prepare for them better, and they're going into zones where they expect them to spawn soon, and they will spread out across the map as a small group and be all around the map. And each one of them can kill the spiders, so they clean out that zone very quickly. And the recommended change for that was to add multiple tiers to these spiders. Everybody seems to think that it's good that there are some spiders that can be killed solo, but I think that it also sounds like people want there to be some spiders that aren't soloable, so less people roam specifically solo. Like they want people to go in the small groups, engage in small group content, not just simply flee to the closest hideout. And if they were to spawn similar to the chests, where they come out in rarity, with each rarity being more difficult, perhaps, that would encourage people to go in groups and provide the occasional really good prize.
Yeah, I think that would be a good step. A lot of people were saying like, like it's kind of cool that you can go out there and solo, but at the same time, like they want that like harder challenge, so to
Mhm.
speak, and having that in group content, maybe have a soloable spider and then a group spider, and or just do it with rarity, like you said. And if you stumble upon a legendary spider, then enjoy the god tier loot that you should expect in and the season points
And
as
the
well.
challenge that would go with
Mhm.
taking it down. Already in chat, we're seeing a Blazing Gone, Crystal Spider, good place to gank, especially in higher tier zones. And if they stuck around a little bit longer, because for the really good ones, it took a real group to take down, you'd see more of that kind of dynamic PvP in the open world. I'm looking forward to seeing that kind of thing. As we've just heard that in the most recent dev talk that was just released yesterday, I believe, they're talking about mobs growing over time and increasing their tier and reward levels in the overworld as well as in dungeons. And I think this is very similar to what we're seeing with the crystal spiders and the treasure drones, sorry, that will get people out to roam the black zones in small groups, and instead of just stagnant waiting for things in some areas. And that can only be good, getting people to go around and run into each other.
Yeah, completely agree. And I'm quite curious as if the mobs level up, would that include the spiders and everything else we have in the open world? Surely, right? Like, well, we'll have to wait and see. But
We'll have to wait and see. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
interesting.
but this idea of randomizing and less predictable spawns was something that has come up quite a bit while we talk to people in the Outlands. I know one of the things that comes up all the time is the current issue with Old White, for example, and how there are very limited spawn points, and people will camp those zones specifically and have scouts there all the time ready to snag those spawns. And I've heard from a very diverse group of people, some people you wouldn't expect to say that this should be changed, but more Old White spawn locations to keep them harder to camp. Just varying the locations that it spawns could really make it more equitable for everybody, I guess, in the Outlands.
Yeah, I mean, right now we have if you include the royals, it's 5 old white spawns for the whole entire game, which is insane. And 3 of them are pretty much, well, I would kind of say slap bang on top of each other. They're spread out between, there's like 3, maybe 4 zones in between them. So if you're an alliance or a very large guild, you can lock down those 3 zones, and right there you're securing what, 1 pup is 120-ish mil. There's a chance of dropping 3 pups, and then the chance of them breeding as well to give you another pup. So it's very lucrative, but it's locked into a certain corner of the world map at the moment. So opening that up to the rest of the world is very good. And once again, it spreads out content.
Yeah, and I actually got some of that feedback from people who feel that it was very easy to gain control over those spawn points and hold them. You
Yep.
know, yeah. Enough said there. But one of the other things that keeps coming up repeatedly about Black Zone living and future Black Zone living and what people want is the idea of some kind of active tower activities. This has come up time and time again, something to make it so either your tower or your hideout has something to differentiate it from others, to make it special, to do something to it. I've heard some very interesting suggestions like turrets on territories and being able to feed towers to level them up. Towers that level up by activity in the zone, either through faming or gathering. Lots of different ideas, but they all came back to this central idea of activity based content changing what you have. And this was something that was expressed before the recent dev talk where they discussed the power crystals and power
Mhm.
vortexes. Do I have those names right?
I think so.
Yeah, they're brand new. Didn't have a lot of time to research them because there's not a lot of info on them. The info we do have is a little bit older
I
from the
mean,
roundtable
basically,
and open to change.
yeah. I mean, what we know is that you can find them in the world and you can pick them up and then you can carry them to your tower or hideout. I think that's what was in that F talk, if I'm right.
Yeah, that's something that hasn't changed, and I think that is consistent to what we know across the board with them. That it's an activity that a vortex will spawn a crystal that will show up on the map. You go to it, you pick it up, it demounts you. You cannot mount up. You show up on the map. People know where you are, and you have to bring it back to your hideout or tower to have some kind of bonus happen to that tower. Now, we don't know what that is. There have been some suggestions, but I don't think anything's locked in stone yet on what those bonuses would be. So this is a good topic for people to give feedback on. What kind of bonuses would you like to see for your towers and hideouts associated with these power crystals?
Yeah, and it's like it could be a wide range of things, like resource return inside your hideouts, gathering what's it? Gathering yield, that's the one I was looking
Mhm.
for. Enchantment rates in your zone, resource born rates increased. I mean, fame boosts for your zones. Like, there's
Mobs leveling
count.
faster. I mean,
Yeah,
now
it's
that mobs are going to level up, you could have an effect that just levels them faster so you get to these higher tier monsters quicker in your zone. There's so many things that you could do with this, and I think it's an interesting direction to go into, especially because it sounds like it's going to have random situations and uh, perhaps the ability to refresh your current one or change it out. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know if there's a way to take them at this point. It didn't sound like it from the dev talk, but I that's something I look forward to hearing about later and also getting feedback from the players. Is this something that once you get the bonus that you should have to defend, or is it something that should be semi-permanent until it runs out and once you place it, you no longer have to defend it? Thoughts on that is something that would be great on our forum post. Do we have a link for that?
I can put one in chat. Yeah.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. Is there anything else you want to go over these power vortexes and crystals, Robin? Any other thoughts?
not really. I'm just We have very limited knowledge of what they're going to be, so let's just wait it out and see. And obviously, feedback from people what they want to see in terms of boosts and everything else for them. Let us know in the forum topic. It is just been dropped in the chat by Bogle. But Bogle, I believe you want to take us away into public
I have one
hideouts.
more thing about towers. Just one more.
Go on.
One of the simpler things that had come up with towers that we wanted to address was a lot of people find that the current leveling of towers through the 5v5 isn't ideal, especially at the lower levels. It's something where when you level your tower at the lower levels, you kind of have to do it very often and refresh it quite frequently. And not every guild that controls towers has the ability to win some of the higher tier uh, leveled crystal fights that you need to make that refresh longer. Like it's hard to get a 5v a level 5v5 team or better, especially now that so many of them are going through mercenaries and people are looking for alternatives to leveling their towers, or at least longer refresh rates on their lower tier towers. All right, now I think we can move on to public hideouts.
Yeah. Third topic on the list, we sort of went around and thought about that topic a little bit. First question to you two guys: did you know that public hideouts exist?
Yeah, I had heard
Yeah.
you've had one for quite a while and you complain about it frequently.
hmm
Hey, but I found out I'm special actually, but we can get through that later. So I mean, first, the concept of a public hideout is it's basically in the Outlands, right? In the Outlands, you can place down a hideout in almost every zone except for the portal zones, and then you can set the access rights depending on what your preference is. And turns out, if you actually look around, there is about 20 to maybe a few hidden 25-ish public hideouts. Um, Almost all of them, however, are next to one of the portal zones. So if you leave a city and you go through a portal and then you go to the next zone over where it's possible to place a hideout, then you find a lot of these. Almost all of them right in bubble range. So it's fairly safe to get to them. Um, have you guys used them at all? Like going in there,
I
crafting something.
I've used them once, but that was to escape a ganker because
Okay.
they had the rest cut off.
Mhm.
So I just jumped into the public hideout to live. So, but
All right.
I don't do
No,
crafting or anything.
well, I have never gone into a public hideout.
I mean,
I think
a lot
maybe
of
on my GM to yours, but that's about it.
right, right. I mean, that is fairly similar to what a lot of people uh, experience as well. That sort of phenomenon has only come up in the last few months, really. When hideouts launched with Queen, nobody really had that on their radar. At least right next to the portal zones. And only in the last few months it has really caught up on because some people figured out that it's profitable, both
Yeah,
using them
this
and running them as well.
this sounded very interesting because I don't think this is anything that we expected. We had heard from members of the public that they thought your hideout would be profitable.
Well,
That a
mine
hideout,
is a very special thing. It's
right?
in fact there's a difference to be made, right? There's all of these hideouts is what I would, I guess, call shallow outlands versus deep outlands, right? Deep is in a ring inside, and the one you're referencing is right next to Merlin's Rest, that one.
hmm
But most of the other ones are very easily accessible from the Royals, which is right next to the portal zones, which is sort of basically in the Royals. Um, but I forgot what your question was.
So I was going to say is people thought that the deep outlands ones like yours and the
Hmm.
one other one that exists would both be areas where profit could easily be made because you could undercut the guilds in the surrounding areas around the rests. However, that is not a real viable option because by doing so you would incur the ire of somebody that you cannot defend your hideout against while you're generally paying rent specifically to the area around you. So that would create a political nightmare for you. Um, and so you generally lose money on your rest. Well, what we've noticed is that these shallow public hideouts are actually making money because, and I'll let you do this, because of their relationship with the city. Why don't you explain that?
Yeah. So when you ask people, and I want to shout out some of the people of some of the owners of the hideouts, Chris Tanika, excellent, Leon Teneb, Iran, Roxanne, and some others who were very kind to write up a whole paragraph about how they run their hideouts. But the profit or revenue rather that some of these generate is not extremely high, but some of the numbers range between like 50 to 100 million revenue a month.
Mm.
Um, that, however, might switch because recently there has been more competition popping up, right?
Mhm.
So it's not an insane amount of money, but for the people who mostly are actually enterprising sort of solo players who have connections. For one person, a 1-2 person operation, that's an all right monthly income, I would say.
Okay.
Chat even says it can be more than 100 million a month, but yeah, it depends on what kind of connections you hire, what kind of effort you put into it. I know a lot of people actually have a whole community build around these hideouts, so they have their own Discord, they have in public advertising, they go out of their way to try and sort of let people know that these exist, and it feels like very much people slowly start to realize that it's actually a thing.
It seems like what's happening is that the players who would normally compete for slots inside of a city for creating buildings are instead building hideouts just outside of the city as some kind of suburban hideout where if you drive 15 minutes away to the dirt mall, you can get a slightly better rate,
The
and you
dirt
don't have
mall.
to. Yeah, the one where they don't have to pay as high rent and they pass the savings on to you. So instead of paying like 18 inside the city, 18%, you're down to say 15%, or some
Um,
of the more competitive rates. You said even 20% difference between the city and a hideout.
Right. So there's two different things to consider here. One is the fee that you pay at a city refining station, for example, or crafting station, which is oftentimes, if the city owners work together, up in the 30s, 40s, 50s range. And a lot of these hideouts actually run like 15 to 20% in terms of fees. And some of the zone bonuses work actually in favor that they're better than the city resource return rates. And that's the 15 compared to 18 percentage that you mentioned. So fees are potentially lower, and there's a potential for like 3% more return rate, I guess.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, that is something that not a lot of people realize. But I mean, the main problem is that you have to walk there, right? And then
Mm.
it includes the potential danger of dying somehow, because you have to, in the city, walk to the portal. You have to, go all the way through that one zone and then zone through, and then you're at the next zone. So if you somehow make a mistake, you don't take the correct path, you lose your bubble for some reason, then there is some sort of danger. But a lot of people tell me it's more or less actually safe if you know what you're doing.
Once you've
Yeah.
done it 2 or 3 times, you're not going to die doing it the fourth.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean the portal zone, you have the invisibility shrine, so you're completely safe that on that zone. Then when you zone in through the next zone, you have a very long bubble, and most of the hideouts, I would say pretty much every single one of the hideouts is positioned in an area where you have bubble right up to said hideout. So the only risk I believe is coming back out, and that's where I've actually heard of people placing naked scouts inside of these public
Mm.
hideouts that scout people that have been crafting, so they can set up gank groups for people when they coming back to the city. As the bubble from hideout to the zone to go into the portal zone is a lot shorter, because I think it's only what 5-10 meter range of a bubble when you leave a hideout.
Mm.
So that's the only risk, is going back if you get scouted by a naked
Some
scout
of
or
these
someone.
actually sit right on the circle where the
Mhm.
the safety bubble starts. So it's kind of weird. I mean, that sort of brings up, going back to the suburbs question that you mentioned. Um, it feels like these are an extension of the cities, and I think that's the deeper philosophical question, right?
Hmm.
Should there be a safe pathway from the city to, I is I don't know what to call it, like
A cheaper suburban city. I mean,
yeah.
it's what it is. It's a extension of the cities where players have, like water, founded the easiest way to flow downhill. And instead of competing inside the cities, which is what they were intended to do with the gameplay design, we could say, they have instead founded the path of least resistance, which is to go outside the city, place a hideout at the very edge of as close as they can to the city, and provide the same type of bonus as a city can. And we're seeing that for a percentage of the population, this has become profitable. And it was, I think, a surprise to all of us.
Yeah, I mean, it comes with some workload, right? You have to feed them, you have to keep up the hideout, you have to do trips back and forth. Some people say almost daily. But yeah, as any sort of enterprise, at some point you can kind of make it work, which is the cool thing, right? In
Hmm.
theory, you have a way to sort of attach another shop area in the open world. But, you know, thinking a little further, I wonder if that's the intended design there. And I think that's where some thinking is to be done.
Yeah, like the argument I saw was obviously risk versus reward. And if your only risk is going back, then
Mm.
the
Yeah.
reward obviously is an increased return rate. And the people that I spoke to mainly use the hideout crafting for their point 0.3, mainly when they're crafting like 8.3, 7.3. That's only like worth their risk of going out there to craft and then or refine and then come back in. So we'll have to see. I mean, bubble range could be something that pops up in the near future. We'll wait and see.
Okay.
One last comment though is that I think this whole process of setting up a hideout and finding people to go to your hideout, making it public, a lot of feedback that I heard was that a lot of people made good social connections through a sort of setting all of that up, and that where some of the fun is coming from. Um, Lots of people got to know each other and established business relationships that way, which is an important fact as well. And of course, you can allow some sort of escape from the city monopoly structure, um, which leads back to the other idea of, you know, looking at cities again potentially. Um,
Mm.
and that leads us into directions of what hideouts are supposed to do, what cities are supposed to do, what living in the outlands should have, for what kind of purpose you have to go back to the royal city, for example, or what you should be able to do in the outlands. Um, all these kinds of things are uh, suddenly interesting from like a very basic gameplay perspective. But yeah, I guess we can move on to the sort of last topic that we have, unless you guys have anything other on the public hideouts. I'm looking through my notes. Oh, I guess one last thing. It's a diplomatic nightmare in some cases.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get into. Is you
If you
have
get
some good notes
pressured.
on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, this can really change the amount of money that you can make. And unlike those city plots that you pay for, you don't have any protection from the mob out here.
No, they knock your door down and say pay or die. Unless you're part of the mob, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you could make the mob. But you'd have to
Uh
make a lot more profit to do that, Bogle. I don't
I,
think 5% is going to do it.
yeah, I mean I've heard the idea that some of these are fairly fragile and they have only managed to sort of skirt along because they know the local owners.
Hmm.
Um I don't want to be the bad guy, but I'm going to say it. Maybe some of these are in danger of in terms of their longevity if somebody figures that out.
Could be, could be. Sounds like you could have some issues coming up in the future. Sorry to let people know you exist. All right. Robin, do you want to talk about the rests? I know you did some research on these and what it's like to live out of the rest or use the rest more often than others, as you're part of or had been part of homeless crew,
Mhm.
which kind of works out of the rests generally.
Used to, now that they've actually they have homes now. They're not
Oh,
homeless
what?
anymore. They have homes.
Oh, I feel
Yeah.
like I've been misled.
I know, what a shame. But yeah, rests, I mean, I did a little bit of digging, speaking around to multiple different groups, solo players, people that stream and do activities in the Outlands by themselves. I also talked to smaller groups that do ganking, and then all the way up to the large armies of the world that patrol out there. And everyone uses the rest, right? Rests are used by armies as a forward operating basis at home and bank their gear if they haven't got a hideout close by to the warring area. Solo players use it as a place to bank their gear, repair their gear, buy gear, and also, re-gear themselves if they die, and so they can instantly go back out into the near enough heartland of the Outlands. I mean, was it one? No, like about 4 maps away from the inner ring, maybe five,
Mhm.
compared to the 8 or 9 you have to run from the city. So I was asking them, do you use public hideouts? And if yes, why? And when it comes to rest, what is missing? And everybody, it's 99% of the people that came back to me said the one thing that they want inside of a rest is an artifact foundry. So,
Okay.
for the people that don't know, what an artifact foundry is, that's the place where you can take your rune, souls, relics, and enchant your gear from flat all the way up to point three. You can also roll relics if you want to and use them there. So it allows solo players, especially, to buy flat gear off the marketplace, use those runes, souls, and relics to enchant their gear if they so please to then go out and carry on living outside around the rests and into the Outlands instead of going all the way back to city to get something done or finding a public hideout that they have access to enchant their gear. Um, so it was one of the most requested things to be added, um, and one of the biggest things that people use public hideouts for when they don't have a guild hideout access. So
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can speak as one of the only people who actually tried and run one of these public hideouts next to a rest. There was, I think, 3 or 4 attempts in the past. 2 of them have gotten demolished because of diplomatic issues. Um, but that's something I can subscribe to. People come to the public hideouts because they want to enchant things and use that artifact foundry. The rest, the refining and crafting, is not as popular.
yeah, and I don't know if chat has any input on this. Like, maybe they can drop us something. Like, what do you think's missing from a rest? If you could add one thing to a rest to make your gameplay a little bit easier,
Mhm.
um, what would it be? Crafting station, refining station, artifact foundry, hardcore expedition mage, an island?
Mm.
Mhm.
Mm.
I don't
I
know.
mean, we're picking at some weird issues here. We did discuss some of this earlier about how there is a need to still try to differentiate between the rests and what they deliver and the cities and what they deliver as like bonuses. But I think of things like you're saying, the artifact foundry. I don't think that screws up any gameplay loop. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's
Mhm.
not changing the way the current mechanics of the game work, where you're supposed to gather in the Outlands, bring it to a city, then bring it to your hideout to craft a weapon to get all the good bonuses. But the intermediary things, such as um, being able to use an artifact foundry so you can condense your artifacts and runes so that you're carrying less out, or upgrade your gear on the spot. I think those kinds of things, they don't take away from the cities. Even adding the ability to do HCEs or arenas, something that so that people can get into quick instant content without having to be part of a Outlands power force, like somebody who's projecting force with a hideout. and still live out there while having to make those regular trips. You don't want somebody to have to make a trip back to the city every time they want to do a 5 minute arena.
Yeah, for sure. And I completely agree. And just looking at chat now, some responses coming in. Artifact Foundry is coming out on top. A lot of
Oh,
people agreeing here. So
can you do arenas from rest? I may have been wrong on that. Is somebody is
um,
saying that?
I think you can sign up anywhere, can't you?
yeah,
Oh
I
yeah,
think so.
what am I saying? Yeah, my bad. I was thinking HCEs and stuff.
Do you mean Crystal League, maybe?
Crystal League too. Yes,
Mm.
Hmm.
I'm just reading chat.
It's okay, Shozen. It's okay.
I hate being wrong, but it happens so often.
I mean, it comes back again to the purpose of where or what your living space does for you, right? Do you live in a city? Do you live in a hideout? Do you live in a rest? What sort of services come with that location? What can you do in that place? What shouldn't you be able to do because it messes with some of the risk that you're supposed to take when you live out there in the world? Um, some interesting sort of thought processes that get kicked off there. And I mean, we're not game designers, right? But I feel like that's something that the team at SBI, I mean, has sort of defined, right? But with the last few years of development, and especially with Queen and this whole introduction of the Outlands, some of the purpose of things might have shifted a little bit. And so it's interesting what people could come up with, especially with adding things to the Outlands in the sort of near future. So I'm very curious what will happen in that regard in the Outlands and plans there, but that's a topic for a different day, I suppose.
Yeah, we can do a little bit of speculation, maybe even on the Daily Show a little bit if we want to examine some of these things in more depth now that we're getting more information on them.
Yeah, for sure. And like we've been saying this whole time, your feedback is key. And if you want to post your feedback, shall I say, you can do via the link that I just dropped in chat right there for you, for any of the topics, or even topics that we haven't covered, and you just want to post your feedback on. Feel free to do it. Like we said, we'll be speaking to the developer hopefully tomorrow. Is it
Hmm.
tomorrow? Yep, tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow is Thursday. We're meeting Friday, I believe.
Friday. Okay, Friday.
Hmm.
So you have a day and a bit to submit your feedback on the topic, so we can grab that as well before we dive in with the developers at Sandbox Interactive and go over all the feedback we've collected on the topics that we've discussed on the show today. But I think that's pretty much it for our topics here, correct?
Yeah, except for one
What's that?
raffle.
Ooh. Who- Have you pulled it? I've
I've
been
pulled a
seeing you've
few.
been pulling them throughout,
Mm.
so
Yeah, I want more people to enter. We only had 40 people in.
okay.
Feel like we can do better than that.
Yeah. Exclamation point raffle in the chat to be entered for a chance to win a gold code ranging from 800 all the way up to 4,000 gold, which equates to about 11 mil silver. So quickly, hustle. Exclamation point raffle in the chat. What's your target goal here, Chosen?
I don't know. What's your favorite target goal?
69.
We have 59.
Ooh, 10 more. Let's go.
Does anybody want to do like elevator music while we wait?
I'm
Jeopardy
wait,
music?
I'm jumping in this one as well. Wait, did I spell raffle right? I did. Okay, cool. It's been a long day. We're at 65.
We're not going to make it.
All right, just pull it.
Oh, 66?
Oh. Oh.
How immature are we that we're literally waiting to pull a raffle for?
It's nice. One more to go. Come on. Are we there, Chosen? Surely
We just
we're
had
there.
3 people try, but they were all. Oh, there it is.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to pull a few of them here. Congrats to everybody. We have 72 people in the raffle. Of course, the magic number.
Let's have a look.
All right. Somebody else read these names.
Bogle.
What? Tar N. Wait, Tar 3 4 N A cut. Shiben, Vyuma, UNV, Annihilator. Is that it?
Yeah.
4 raffles. Nice.
Well, the other 2 have already been claimed.
Do you want to say their names again, or?
Yeah, go for it. You can say their names again. They have to whisper me to claim their prize.
And who are you?
I have not been getting that right lately. Somebody else has got to do it.
I mean, I guess you could type in chat. You can't get that wrong, can you?
No, I did.
Shows them
I
why.
said,
There you go.
whisper me to claim your prize. Did I won? No, you did not won.
No.
Well, you can try again tomorrow, I suppose.
But you can try again tomorrow. You can try every day. And sometimes you'll win. Some people win more than once.
I never won.
Do you want to tell people about tomorrow, or are we done for today?
We should probably tell people about tomorrow. We will be back with the War Report, followed by hopefully the new player show tomorrow, where we will be looking at new player content and the Destiny board, as well as a bunch of early builds you can use to make yourself successful in PvP and PvE with Nomad Poncho, aka Stabber, one of the top streamers and PvP artists of Albion Online. And we'll be following that with hopefully Hellgates. The Hellgate show, where we look at 10v10 Hellgates and just watch those as Tazik telestrates all the best parts of the matches for us. I think that's pretty cool. We've done that a few times, and I've definitely enjoyed it.
Indeed. And just to hit on that as well, the Hellgate no-show loot has been buffed by 30% today when the patch hit. So if you're looking to do some Hellgates in the 10v10 scene, and maybe you don't find an opponent, you're going to have a 30% chance of better loot as well. So go dive in.
That's pretty good. I will take that. That'll get some extra names in there.
Alrighty. I think that's it.
It better be.
It is.
Alrighty.
We've gone way over our
Wind it
time.
up. Definitely.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. And until next time, keep it classy, Albion. We're out.
Adios.